so it doesn't work very well.
I can imagine some computer screens we have this problem.
Yeah, in my case also, Anand. So apologize for this.
It's okay. When we meet sometime in Europe, you can buy me a coffee as a penalty.
Okay, good. You're welcome.
So it doesn't work very well.
Okay. So very good morning to ladies and gentlemen who are joining us from Europe, and good afternoon and good evening.
Good afternoon to you. Anand, can you hear me?
Anand is hanging.
I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can
hear you, but
hear you.
we can't hear Anand. He's hanged already.
Very good. We don't need Anand here, do we?
I think that's the best angles of him, maybe.
Hello.
Yeah, Anand, sorry we lost you. I think you have to start again.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm sorry. I had a power cut in my area. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome you all for, I'm very excited to welcome you all for EQ webinar on hydrogen and fuel cells. And we're excited to know about the technology, market outlook, opportunities and challenges. So first, I'll just introduce myself and EQ Magazine. I am Anand Gupta, founder and editor of EQ Magazine. We started 12 years ago with immense love and passion for renewable energy. The journey has been truly miraculous in the sector of renewable energy. And we have a monthly magazine in print and digital. We have a daily e-newsletter, and we have a news website being updated daily on renewable energy. And we cover information from worldwide. So our publishing platform basically provides a platform for knowledge sharing, knowledge gaining on technology, markets, policies, regulations, business, finance, etc. We are very active in the events division as well. And the events division, we have conferences, webinars, product launches, bioseller meets, trainings, etc. So our events platform aims to provide the professionals in this sector a platform where they can speak their mind and heart out, interact with like-minded people, and for businesses to get a platform to grow and connect with each other. So this is about myself. I'm truly excited and motivated that the journey of renewable energy has been amazing. The technology and price curves have been truly miraculous in the last 10 to 15 years. And the next 10 years, the decade that is just starting now, and the onset of hydrogen, fuel cells, electric vehicles, and further journey in the solar and wind energy space, energy storage, etc., is really making it extremely interesting and increasingly making the world to believe that 100% renewable energy is possible in next 10 to 20 years in many parts of the world. With this, I'm extremely thankful first of all to all of the gentlemen and ladies who have joined us today to enlighten us about what is going on in the hydrogen and fuel cells market. A very distinguished set of panelists we have. First of all, I'm thankful to Mr. Luke Grare, Green Hydrogen Development Investment from Live, to agree to not only join but also moderate the session. Along with him, a very distinguished panel we have, joined by Mr. Philippe, President of French Association for Hydrogen and Fuel Cells, Mr. David Hart, Director Sustainable Energy Consultancy from E4 Tech, Mr. Tirtha Biswas, Program Lead Council on Energy, Environment and Water, CEW, Mr. Albert Abraham Ling, Founder and Senior Partner from Portugates, Mr. Greg Erkig, CEO from Sky Energy Private Limited, Mr. Jean-Louis Kindler, CEO of Waste2H Inc. Mr. Mohammed Hashemi, CEO of Surf Technologies Limited, Mr. Petri, CEO of Solartech Power OI, Mr. Naveed Akhtar, CEO of High Hybrid Energy, Mr. Servo, Hydrogen Energy Leader from BEC, Mr. Lennart van der Boer, Business Development Manager from TNO Hydrogen, and Mr. Francois Gilles, Innovation Finance Advisory from the European Investment Bank. So I'm extremely excited to hear from all the gentlemen today on this industry. Let us set some basic rules, ladies and gentlemen. So we're gonna have time of around 8 to 10 minutes, or precisely around 7 to 8 minutes per speaker or presenter. I request all of you to keep your mics on mute mode, except when the speaker or moderator is speaking, only then unmute it, and then please remute it. For the chat box, so we have an amazing feature in webinars called the chat box, and the chat box can be used for Q&As, networking, etc. So that's all from my side. Without wasting any much of time, I'll hand over to Mr. Luc Grare from Live, the moderator of today's session, to start with. This webinar is streaming live on YouTube, and I am sharing the link at which it is streaming. So I request you all to please repost it from your social and business media accounts, so that this gets maximum coverage in the social and business media such as YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. So once again, thank you very much to all of you. And I'll
sorry, Anand, sorry, I haven't received that link that we can share on YouTube, by the way.
I just shared it on the chat box, sir. Just kindly see the chat box.
Yeah.
I hope everyone has got it on the chat box. So I'll now hand over to Mr. Grare, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you to everybody joining here. Thank you to the probably big audience and also following us later on via YouTube. So today we will focus on hydrogen, probably mostly green hydrogen. We might be touching also on one or the other color, as long as it's far away from gray and black, I would say. All the rest is very good. The more sunny color, the better it is, or the more blue sky, it's also better. So, of course, hydrogen is an important cornerstone in the decarbonization because we might be going for a 100% renewable energy world, but we will not be able to manage the full decarbonization with only electrification. And that is the reason also why we probably will need hydrogen in this world, potentially, like I said, green hydrogen. We will be in these discussions be very, very practical. I think hydrogen has come to a certain maturity that we can talk about the real stuff and not just about fuzzy ideas, etc. So let's talk about numbers, let's talk about cost, let's talk about price, let's talk about volume, etc. And let's challenge each other also on those numbers. So I think in this way, we really can bring a value for our audience here in this 2-hour session. So we will have here PowerPoint slides. So we will have lots of information, but I hope we can bring in these 2 hours also lots of entertainment and lots of fun. So let's start now with a first presentation, and we will do in this way that in between the presentations, we will have some discussion among us about certain topics, reflections on the presentation done. In this way, we keep it, let us say, somewhere alive, and not only a session of lots of presentations after each other, and at the end of the day, maybe some discussion. Let's keep discussions somewhere in between. And I think in this way, we can make a nice session out of this. So the first presentation is a kind of, the one who is going to present is calling it a dream. I don't think it's a dream anymore. A hydrogen, it's no science fiction. It's already there, or it is near future. But anyhow, let's still give us a chance to give it a little bit of dream with Albert Abraham Ling from Portuguese. So I give you the floor.
Okay, thank you, Luc. All right. So today, everyone can see the slide, right?
Yeah.
Okay, today I'm just like to make it free and easy, just to share with you of what hydrogen would look like in the near 5 to 10 years. Okay, as you know, these are basically if you look at the chart, this is basically how hydrogen is so-called at the current stage, how it's been positioned, right? Basically, you can use hydrogen for hydrogen vehicle, synthetic fuel, upgrades of oil or biomass, ammonia, fertilizers by adding nitrate, and then metal refinery, other end use, heating, and of course, by end of the day is power generation. So today, in regards to the dream itself, I'm going to focus basically on two segments. One is basically power generation, as well as hydrogen vehicles, right? The reason why I'm focused on this is that if you look at the chart of basically the direct energy consumptions in the world, basically I would say 90%, 95% of it is basically fossil fuel. In that sense itself, if we can call upon the governments, once basically hydrogen hit certain how to say, certain pricing, let's say maybe 3 kilowatts per kilogram, we can actually ask the government to say, why not change existing fossil fuel power plant to a hydrogen power plant? So that itself will really make an impact if the governments are willing to take the initiative, existing power plant to be converted into hydrogen. So this is one of the dreams that that would come true if we all stand together to make it come true, right? The thing is that one of these area where you need to be focused also is basically for hydrogen production. You need to be real time and on demand basis, because the thing is that talking about cost of storage, cost of transportation, that would really put hydrogen, cost high. So that is another thing that I think we must look into, whereby how do we produce hydrogen in real time and on demand purposes. So this is another dream that basically in regards to power generation. The second dream is basically in terms of transportations. As you know that transportation is actually the second largest greenhouse gas emissions sectors, right? So my suggestion basically, my dream will be the 3-step approach. One, converting existing vehicle to hydrogen-based vehicle. There are 2 ways of it: diesel engine running on hydrogen fuel, electric car using hydrogen fuel cell and not battery. Then the second one itself is basically new car or trucks with electric motor running on hydrogen fuel cell with hydrogen tank, right? Then the third part of it is that the moving out from there itself is to get a hydrogen generator that is more efficient enough to retrofit into a car or trucks to generate enough hydrogen needed for the vehicle. So this is my second dreams in terms of transportation. Let me just give you an illustration of this dream. So in the market now, as you can see, people are actually comparing what about electric car versus gasoline, the pros and cons of each of it. Whether the hour to recharge is too long for electric, gasoline take lower time to refuel. The mileage for electric is low, the gasoline mileage is high, this and that. So why not we go into the future of hydrogen, whereby we retrofit the thing into a hydrogen generator, change the fuel tank into water tank, feed it to the hydrogen generator. The hydrogen generator can be used by the hydrogen fuel cell for the electric motor or controller, or the hydrogen can be generated, can be fueled into the combustion engine to run the car. So why not have the best of both worlds? So you will have no carbon emission. You just need to have water source. So there's no utility company involved or OPEX or anything like that. Then in terms of mileage wise, you have a high mileage. And then refuel wise, you just pour in water. So it doesn't really take much of time. And then another one is basically the cost of water. The cost of the fuel is basically just water. So this is something why I say it's a dream, because it will take a lot of research in order for us to get there, right? Then, so what are the future in a more logistic way, in a larger spectrum itself? We're looking at hydrogen. Hydrogen is the energy density unit mass is 3 times higher than traditional jet fuel, right? So why not we have an aeroplane that run on hydrogen fuel and hydrogen generator that generate hydrogen from water collected from the cloud? You know, I think you guys have seen Star Trek and all those, right? Not Star Trek, Lost in Space, whereby they harvest the ammonia from the air and basically process it and use it and so on. So something similar can be done as well. Why not an airplane that can run, can fly without even need to land, whereby it can cover the water from the cloud and basically with a hydrogen generator and generate the fuel that is required for the engine to run. I mean, of course, this is just a dream. So the technical part itself, I think that I'll leave it to all the technicals, engineers, aerospace people and all those to come out with possible probably pilots or something. Then in terms of car, so car with hydrogen generator that run on fuel cell or hydrogen engine. So just pour in water, it can run. And so with that, I'm just saying that no, or even a flying car with hydrogen fuel cell, because the energy density is so high, so you can actually boost up the car. I mean, whether filled with jet engine, whatever it is, the technology is available in the future, and you can even fly the car. So with hydrogen fuel, we are entering a new era of opportunity. That's what the dreams that I wanted to cast out to everyone and see your feedback from there. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Albert. To be honest, it was a bit more dreaming than what I expected, but it's okay.
That's why it's a dream.
So, yeah. No, I think what I would like to touch on, what first came up to me when I saw, I think it was the second slide, that you put there a statement that the electricity consumption should go from 44 kilowatt per kilogram to 5 kilowatt per kilogram, which it's a huge ambition. Of course, we all know that is the elephant in the room, the electricity consumption, and that is the main driver to make green hydrogen really cheap. But 44 to go down to 5, what do you think needs to be done? And do you have any kind of assumptions on these, how this can be realized?
Okay, actually, looks there is a research that is part of the research that partners of ours actually have done, and basically they have reached that level. It's just matter of commercialization. So that will be probably by mid of, you will see the product coming out probably mid of next year, mid or end of next year.
Okay.
A product that will be able, a hydrogen generator that will be able to generate from around 3 to 4 kilowatt per kilogram.
Which is a high temperature then?
No, I mean it's actually not a conventional. It's not a conventional hydrolysis. It's an unconventional hydrolysis. We're talking about just to leak a bit. We're talking about using lasers, using resonance and thermolysis and so on.
And do you believe that is something which can be done at scale, or is this some? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because the thing is that the way how it's been done, it does not require a lot of material like hydrolysis. You require the plates and all those, right? So with this itself, you don't actually require those so-called material to actually generate those hydrogen.
Okay.
So the quantity can be a lot. So
Okay.
this is something that will be a game changer, which I foresee that, you know, yeah, looking forward for it for mid of next year or end of next year for the product to be reviewed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Other people in our panel has a view on this, because that's of course I think a massive game changer. What Albert just talked about. So anybody else here in the panel a view on this aspect? Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to ask, what was the company that is developing this kind of technique? Because that's a huge jump forward if you can really go with 2 to 3 kilowatts per kilo only.
It's 3 kilowatts and above. Yeah. So currently they are probably hitting around 5. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the company name actually?
I try not to review yet.
Okay.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
But it's great if this would be possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, once it's commercialized, it will be a game changer because you don't need to have storage and also transportation. This is where the cost of the hydrogen was. I mean, majority of the cost of hydrogen is to basically turn it to liquid and basically to compress it and so on. So those are the costs that we can eliminate.
Mhm. Lennart, do you have a view on this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm really surprised because if you're just calculating the megajoules, you need some external energy to actually, if you have 3 kilowatt using, that's like 10 megajoule, and you're creating a kilogram hydrogen, which is 120 megajoules. So where's the energy coming from? So there should be an external energy source there, which is actually creating that. So I'm happy to discuss, but I'm not following it completely, but. Dreaming is always good, but just if you have the company, let's discuss it further. Thanks.
It's exactly my question because kilowatt is a unit for power and not for energy. So maybe I miss something, but I don't understand.
Somebody from the audience is saying also here the theoretical number is 33 kilowatt per hour.
Exactly.
Per kilogram. You cannot go below. So yeah.
And kilowatt hour and not kilowatt.
Yeah.
So maybe I missed something, but I don't understand.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, Albert, that is a good idea, but I think again, just like every other solution out there in the market, it's what I call, excuse my language, a dead donkey project. Now, most of these projects, so-called hydrogen, this is the future project, they're all dead donkey projects. They're all highly unsustainable. And just to give you an example, for example, let's say if we wanted to provide, since the gentleman earlier said, let's talk numbers. If we just wanted to provide enough fuel for, let's say, the cars in UK, this is where I live. If we wanted, there is just under 39 million vehicles, licensed vehicles in UK, and if you just wanted to provide once a week, fuel filling your tank possibility for every one of those, you would need about 600 billion liters of water. Are you going to take John's drinking water away just to give yourself a bit of fuel for your car? No, that's not going to happen. Now, this is why I say all of these projects, majority, actually overwhelming majority, are dead donkey projects. These projects are highly unsustainable and detrimental to life on Earth. So I don't think that's going to happen. And maybe I'm missing something, but I think the reason why so much money is being pumped into those is the same idea where the solar and wind came in. And for example, those people in south of Spain are having problems now. The solar farms in south of Spain are having problems. They're saying, oh, the incentives are going away. What are we going to do? So as long as you need incentives in there, it's a dead donkey project. It's not going to be viable. Now, first of all, the issue of water needs to be solved. This is where my company and I myself have been, I've been doing some work on hydrogen from seawater for the last 6 years. I mean, I've produced a working prototype. Now, we can produce hydrogen. We can produce it cheaply. And the gentleman earlier, commented on yours. Where is the energy coming from? No, there is different forms of energy that could be applied. For example, in my device, I've achieved nearly 400% efficiency compared to conventional electrolysis. It's because people tend to just look at, okay, how much electricity is going into there. They don't look at other means of power. For example, in my device, I use electromagnetics, forces, and they seem in my device, if the distances are correct, they work miracles. And a magnet, it's not free. You can't get a free magnet, but it's a continuous supply of energy without the need of any input into there. So you can have other forms. I mean, there is galvanics in my solution, but let's not talk about my solution. So there is a way. There is at present. We don't need to wait those decades. There is a way at present to produce hydrogen from abundant seawater, ocean water, whatever you want to call it. In my device, all you need to do is just filter the water so you don't have any sediment in there. And you can use it whatever type of water it is. You can produce it cheaper than fossil fuels, because we can have a loop system where the electrical input is minimal, while you have the galvanics and the
magnetics field to
yes, electromagnetic field.
There is actually one of the combinations of the 4 that I mentioned just now, but I leave out the magnetic field. It's one of the area. Yeah.
Now the main problem today is actually the finances. Finances are being thrown at those lame projects. Finances are being thrown, and that's the same reason why I think solar and wind came in. And for the same reason, the status quo, let's call it, is trying to give us a solution that they know it's going to fail. I mean, they're not going to ask Albert or Jean-Louis or Petri that, okay, do you want to give up the drinking water for your children, or do you want to give up the drinking water for your agriculture to just fuel John's car? No, you wouldn't. That's not a question anybody wants to answer. I don't think. I mean, I don't have any children of my own, but I'm sure I'm very close to my nieces, so I'm sure nobody wants to to jeopardize that. We don't want. I mean, let's say if we could even sacrifice some of our agriculture, how much is that going to raise the kilo of tomatoes to? If we were going to use that water to produce energy for Albert's car. Let's not talk about John. So it's a detrimental cycle. There is no funding for game-changing projects, unless of course you've got tons of money yourself and you can bring a product to the market. That hasn't been the case in my situation. I have gone from day one when I started suggesting this about 6 years ago. I've been shunned, and nobody seems to want to finance anything like this. And people are not interested. People are interested in saying, okay, wind farms. Wind farms, actually, it's so difficult to become even commercially viable unless there was incentives. When there is incentives, when you're asking people for handouts, you're not saying that my project can produce power. What you're saying is, give me a bit more, and I can give you some power. No. So the whole concept has been I think it's been actually forced into that corner, to just make sure that, okay, in about 10-15 years time, just the same as happened to those solar farms in south of Spain. That, hey, we tried. We spent billions. We wasted so much money. But look, your hydrogen is no good. No, hydrogen is good. Hydrogen is clean. Hydrogen can, substitute, and it can actually replace fossil fuels. We can actually start it today. We don't have to even wait, for generations to come. Hydrogen is viable. So
yeah, I think some good points, Mohammed. Sorry to interrupt you, because we would like to have also some other speakers here, but we would like to hear later on a little bit more about your solution. And I really wish that after these sessions, some investors will come to you with lots of interest. And I think also is a question which I picked up here, which you should explain later on. You mentioned 400% efficiency. I think also somebody wants to hear it. Now, and please stay tuned for more about the solution from Mohammed, what I was referring to. So I would like to ask now Jean-Louis Kindler to give his view. And especially also what it really will take us to have really an offtake of hydrogen in the market, and how we can encourage demand for hydrogen. So Jean-Louis Kindler is CEO from Waste to Age, so I assume Waste to Hydrogen. So Jean-Louis, the floor is yours, please. You are on mute. You have to unmute, Jean-Louis. You have to unmute.
I think I am unmuted now.
Yeah, now you're there.
Thank you very much, Luc. Well, my view on how we will actually reach a sustainable and an actual hydrogen infrastructure is probably through using a much wider variety of feedstocks, as well as production methods. I mentioned earlier in the preliminary remarks, I must say, and I'm sure that the people at EQ will not blame me too much for this remark, but I would actually have hoped that there would be a little pile of waste in this background to complement the windmills and the solar panels, because as Mohammed said earlier, it will take a lot of water to produce all, or to extract all the hydrogen that will be needed in the future. Reality, I think, is that all this infrastructure, just like it took several decades to build a whole energy, a whole economy based on fossil fuels, it will not take 2 years, it will not take 10 years to convert this whole infrastructure into a hydrogen-based economy. So we will need to tackle all the resources we have, and sun is great, wind is absolutely beautiful. We love all that. But again, I think it's very important to realize that the reality is that it will not be enough. And we need to take hydrogen where it is. And one of the good news is that wherever there is human activity, there is waste. And there is a lot of waste. There's all the waste that has piled up on Earth, in the ocean, in the ground. Now, several studies have demonstrated that we even had microplastics in our bodies. And we keep producing basically around 2 billion tons of waste that today is going into landfills. A fraction of that is actually recovered as energy, but it is recovered as a carbon-based energy. We're talking about the biogas, methane, that in some cases, again, is extracted and used as fuel. it's important to realize that these 2 billion tons of mixed waste represent approximately 50% of all the world's motor gasoline consumption. So it's not everything. It will not be enough, but it definitely is a different pathway for hydrogen production that can be made available for human use. And people will tell me, well, we are doing some sorting, we will be reducing our waste. Well, reality actually is that even when we start producing bioplastics, for example, well, those bioplastics, some of them will be compostable, some of them will be biodegradable, but not all of them, which means that it's something that is here, that again, we have about 8 billion tons of plastic that is present on Earth today, and it's something that will not be stopping because, well, waste production per capita is something that is actually still increasing. So that waste, when we talk about municipal solid waste, about 70% of this municipal solid waste is actually organic. When I say organic, I mean chemically organic, meaning that it contains carbon and hydrogen. It's anything that is biomass, plus anything that used to be biomass some 300 million years ago, and that actually became fossil now. That's all the crude oil derived whatever materials, mostly plastic, of course. This organic matter, like I said, contains carbon and contains hydrogen. Well, thermochemical conversion solutions, I'm talking about gasification, but I'm also talking about more specifically the way that we at Waste2H have approached a new way, I would say an improved way of doing gasification, is precisely a solution that uses the energy, the energy source that is contained in the feedstock, I'm talking about carbon, to extract hydrogen. And furthermore, while electrolysis based, so green hydrogen, is something that obviously, and this is very good news again, I'm not here to criticize or to say anything against green hydrogen. While green hydrogen is, of course, decarbonized because there is no carbon involved in that hydrogen production chain, the major advantages of waste to hydrogen solutions is that combined with carbon capture and storage or carbon capture and sequestration solutions, that carbon that is present in the feedstock is potentially, well, it's not potentially, it actually can be stored and sequestered underground in construction materials. Anyway, in anything that will not send that carbon back to the atmosphere. So not only we have here a solution that can produce hydrogen and that can produce renewable hydrogen. Keep in mind that municipal solid waste is a renewable feedstock, unfortunately, but that's the reality. So not only we can produce renewable hydrogen, but at the same time, we can literally take carbon out of the atmosphere and send it back where it belongs. I'm talking about underground. A few words about what we specifically are doing. We are commercializing a solution that has been developed in Japan over the past almost 20 years. I actually was in charge of engineering and building the very first pilot of this solution that is specifically targeting small to medium scale production systems. We deeply believe that we are going towards decentralized solutions, solutions that will be able to significantly reduce the logistics on waste, You don't want to spend money, asphalt, time to truck away waste on very, very long distances. So take that waste, process it locally, extract hydrogen locally so that it can be used also locally. There are still a few challenges about hydrogen logistics. What we promote, what we think is an easier way to develop this hydrogen infrastructure is by gradually, just like gasoline stands, we started in the early 20th century, we started by buying gasoline at drugstores. And then the first gasoline stands appeared. They peaked up to about 200,000 gasoline stands in the United States. I think it was in the 60s and 70s. We are now at 110,000 gasoline stands in the United States. Well, let's build them one by one, possibly 10 by 10. That would be a little better. But these decentralized solutions, we believe, are a way to, again, not to. Someone mentioned financing earlier, and investors. Well, investors, what they want to do, they also need to make money. They need to see a return on their investment, and I think that it's a very tough situation. But the tough reality shock and the tough reality check also is that investors will invest on projects where they believe there will be a return. So they usually are not very risk prone, and also gathering $500 million or $1 billion to build the equivalent of a nuclear power plant is something that takes time. It's something that is a major risk. Reducing risk by reducing the individual investment or the individual size of the project is something that I believe is also a way to smoothly and probably in an easier manner develop this infrastructure that we will badly need, and that today truck manufacturers, forklift manufacturers, car manufacturers are really badly needing, because you cannot sell a fuel cell car if you do not have a wide hydrogen production grid. Again, this is what we think we can offer as a complement to the green hydrogen solutions, which again are also very useful. They all have their cost. We talked about how many kilowatt hour needed to produce hydrogen, etc. I think it's very important, but well, gasoline production as well as other energy sources development. Well, initially those were not that efficient, and efficiency has increased over the years. This is something that I believe will also happen with hydrogen, as long as we keep trying to be realistic. And sorry, Albert, but the dreams are great. I think it's very important to have a vision, but to make real and concrete progress, we first have to stick with reality and tackle actual and very current problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean-Louis. I think you can stop sharing your presentation. I've got a question here. How much of the total hydrogen which is today used you think can be made out of waste recycling? And,
well,
and second question connected to this, what do you think that the lowest possible price could be then to make hydrogen this way?
The US Department of Energy has released a report in 2017 called the Billion Ton Report. And the reason why it's called the Billion Ton Report is that it's because they have identified potential sources for biomass, and that includes ag waste in the US for actually above a billion tons. I think they were saying about 1.2 billion tons. And when you look very strictly at the chemical formula for that biomass, you realize that this billion-ton biomass, it's the equivalent. You could potentially extract about 50 million tons of hydrogen. And 50 million tons, again, considering all the relative efficiencies. If you look at the power at the gasoline-based powertrain and at the hydrogen-based powertrain, well, 50 million tons of hydrogen, that's the equivalent of 90% of the gasoline being consumed in the United States today. So hydrogen, there will be green hydrogen. Actually, we have right now in California, we have more and more projects related to green hydrogen production that actually do not really need a lot of subsidies, because solar electricity today in California is genuinely and intrinsically cheap. But it will not be enough. In Ohio, in Vermont, and in Montana, you will not get enough sun to produce hydrogen. So the real biomass and waste, I mentioned 8 billion tons. Well, 8 billion tons, actually it's 8 billion tons plastic being on Earth. I'm not saying we will be able to gather and actually recover all these 8 billion tons, but potentially that's we're talking 400 million tons of hydrogen.
I think, clear. I think it's considerable volume. But just very quick, tell us a number. What is probably the lowest price you can get for the kilogram hydrogen in this way?
Well, the good news with waste is that today, in most economies, municipalities and households are paying for their waste to be processed. And waste to hydrogen solutions. And again, sorry again, Albert, I'm not dreaming here. The reality is that this waste to hydrogen solution should be monetized, both on hydrogen sales and also on waste processing. And based on standard European or European or North American waste processing costs, today we reach a hydrogen production cost. I'm talking production. That is around $2 a kilogram.
Okay, that's good. It's a good number. Yeah, fine. Good. Jean-Louis, thank you very much. Thank you. I would like immediately to move on to the next presentation, considering the time, and I think all speakers, we need to see to keep it short and brief to about 5-6 minutes per presentation. I would like to ask Lennart van der Burg from TNO in Netherlands, which has worked out a short presentation about how we can scale up the hydrogen production. So Lennart, please, the stage is yours and you can share your screen.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope you can see my screen now. I go in presentation mode.
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, Lennart van der Burg. I'm leading the hydrogen development at TNO. TNO is a research institute in the Netherlands. We work with around 1,000 people, experts on renewable energy. And the reason why we work on renewable energy is actually, you all know, we are breaking records with respect to climate change. This is only the newspapers of the last week. The Netherlands, so we had the hottest day last week, but also the high snowfall in Canada, and also California is getting severe weather conditions, and the greenhouse gas emissions are just rising. And I think that's why we're all joining to develop renewable energy and also hydrogen, which will take a major role, as also said in the introduction, to replace fossil fuels where there is no other option. So where electricity is coming too short, there hydrogen is coming in. Yeah, and we're breaking records. Unfortunately, that's I think the situation. I think we should put our efforts, and that's the objective of our research institute, for the energy unit at least to work on technologies which also behavior to come with solutions. About our hydrogen research, I will talk now about gigawatt electrolysis, but we're doing also research on hydrogen storage. We're doing our first pilot to store hydrogen underground, pressurized in existing gas fields, but also in salt caverns. We're doing also projects on the CO2 storage, the blue hydrogen route. We're doing research on infrastructure, developing new sensors on hydrogen quality and hydrogen, using existing infrastructure to transport hydrogen in the existing gas infrastructure to make that ready. And obviously, we're doing research in the application of hydrogen in all different areas, for example, synthetic fuels. And we, in our project, really look where hydrogen really can be a solution. So our statement is where we can use electricity, we should use electricity, and where there's no other option, please go to the hydrogen route. This is the Netherlands, and the whole reason why there's so much effort, I think, in Europe, but also especially in the Netherlands and also Germany, is to focus on hydrogen and especially electrolysis, because we want to utilize all the wind energy on the North Sea. We've got a potential of 70 gigawatts of wind energy in the North Sea. We now have only 1 gigawatt wind park in operation. The coming years, more gigawatt wind parks coming in operation. And if we exceed that 10-11 gigawatt wind energy production, then there is a need to partly convert that wind energy to hydrogen in order to integrate it in our energy system. In white, you see here a plan for making a big hydrogen backbone into the Netherlands. And we also, at a certain moment, we're exceeding the electricity use in the Netherlands. So that's and as the previous speaker already said, we're using much more fossil energy compared to electricity use. So part of it will be electricity, part of it will be hydrogen. And as the Netherlands, we're quite good position with the harbors on the coast, which we partly produce hydrogen itself and partly produce importing the hydrogen. And also the idea is to export it also to parts of Germany. And here you see some of the projects which are being announced. The most concrete is the one in north of the Netherlands, the 20 megawatt system. And I will present you a study we did. We designed for 12 locations in the Netherlands a gigawatt electrolyzer facility. And here you see a rough outline how this gigawatt facility can look like. And to give you an impression, in the Netherlands now, it's the current hydrogen production is 1.6 million ton of hydrogen, but it's all gray hydrogen. If we want to go to green hydrogen, we need huge amounts. And the last 10 years, the total installed capacity of electrolysis is 160 megawatts worldwide, 160, 170 megawatts. So if we talk about gigawatt electrolysis, we really need to speed up the development and learn from how we can develop this kind of system, because you see here a number of stacks. There's an alkaline system, and in this picture we're using roughly if we work with 10 megawatt alkaline stacks, but if we're looking at PEM, we work with 400 PEM stacks, but that's only the heart of the system. We need the power electronics, we need the demi water, we need the compression, we need the cooling. So this total plot size will be around 10 to 20 hectares. And we did preliminary designs for with partners with ISPT and the industry partners in different parts of the Netherlands. And this is the roadmap how we think the electrolyzer development will further continue. These are different generations. So you see generation X, Y, and Z. The first challenge is standardization. You see all the electrolyzer manufacturing focus on standardize their products, now mostly containerized, and focus on really design. So team up with EPC contractors. The power electronics is really important. So on the first years, the focus is really on improving the current alkaline and PEM systems. The next generation is really, we should improve the performance, lifetime, and look at how we can manufacturing these components and optimize the system designs, because up to now, there's not really an existing supply chain yet on these components. And the first, then we're really gonna look at radical new designs. We're looking at high temperature electrolyzer, we're looking at IM electrolyzer. We have gonna issue with the low temperature of the iridium used in the electrolyzer PEM. and this always needs to reach to cost reduction. I mean, in the gigawatt, we come to costs up to 1,400, 1,800 euro per kilowatt of the total installed electricity of the electrolyzer plant. And yeah, that number needs to be dropped down to levels of 500 euros per kilowatt for the total installed system. And these numbers, you should really treat them carefully, because a lot of times people talk only about the stack or only the balance of plant, but we talk about the complete operating system, including all grid connections and everything. But this is the roadmap we see. And actually, the next step we see in the future is really co-electrolysis. We now talk about a lot of water electrolysis. Next step is really, beside water, also using CO and making fine chemicals using electrochemistry, and that we're doing in our PhotoChem program. And lastly, this is where we're doing our research and then ferret it up. It's a way we do the research on a really small scale. Here you see a PEM electrolyzer stack, really a couple of centimeters, and here we work with supplies on really thin membranes up to 50 microns, new bipolar plates, and try to increase the lifetime of these electrolyzer systems from, let's say, 80,000 hours up to 150,000 hours, and also increase the efficiency, because one of the ways, can we increase the current density, keep the lifetime, and get rid of the scarce materials. So these are quite some research questions which are still on the table, and which needs to be solved if we really go to gigawatt scale, because otherwise we creating another problem. But if we really go to gigawatt scale using the PEM technology, we need the worldwide iridium voorraad, the availability of all the iridium only for the electrolyzer. So this is a material issue, and our other issues we definitely should solve to go to gigawatt to the gigawatt scale. And the other important issue is obviously we need renewable electricity, and we really need a lot if we want to replace all the fossil fuels. So it will be a combination of green hydrogen and also low carbon hydrogen, and using electricity directly. So this was my short contribution. So I don't know if there are any questions. I try to keep it short.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leonard. It was very good, very comprehensive, very clear. I've got one question. I 100% agree with you that we need to come to these below 500 euro per kilowatt peak, all in, connected, etc. Absolutely. Now, what is your idea which year we might be there on a gigawatt scale plant in Europe? And what do you think by then probably could be the electricity consumption we talked about before? But I think that's also to see those two parameters on.
I mean, in the future, joint undertaking strategic roadmaps are concrete targets where you want to go with respect to costs. In practice, we see the really large projects. I mean, a lot of costs coming extra, the infrastructure costs, etc. So I think the cost level where we are now, let's say around 1,000 euro, 1,500 euro for an alkaline system completely installed. If we want to really go to cost reduction, it's all about volume, because all the electrolyzers now are handmade nearly. So if we need to go to higher units, and if we break that level, then we are able to go to cost reduction. So that will be in the next, let's say 5 to 6 years, where we're reaching the going below the 500 euros. If we really go to the high numbers, because that's really an important one to create that volume. That's an important one. And your second question about efficiency, we can reach higher efficiency, but then we need, for example, higher catalyst loadings. So that's completely a trade-off. So reaching a higher efficiency with a lower cost and a lifetime, that's really a challenge. So that's I can't give a straightforward answer on that, because it's really a trade-off. I mean, you see one company is really going to high current densities, and the larger stacks, others going to smaller stacks. So that's not. I mean, we're getting to a high efficiency. For example, reusing the waste heat. That's a thing we can reach high efficiency. Yeah, but yeah.
I think really makes sense, Leonard. And I think if we have time left over at the end, I would like to come back to this trade-off which you just raised, because I think that is a very interesting one, and also keeps us on our side daily busy. Thank you, Leonard. I would like to go to the next presenter for today, and I think what we have seen in Europe is that several countries have made a big announcement for support schemes for the hydrogen economy. We know Germany, 7 billion euro, Spain did one more on top of this, Portugal also. We know the EU Green Deal program, and also France. And I would like to ask now Philippe Boucli from the French Hydrogen Association, AFIPAC, to give us some insights on the strategy in France. Please, Philippe.
Thank you, Luc. Thank you. Hello to everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the French hydrogen strategy. I will explain where we are and what are the challenges in front of us. We all are convinced that we are at the dawn of a new era. The next 10 years will be critical for hydrogen. Before starting, some words about our association, France Hydrogène. Previously, it was called AFIPAC. AFIPAC for Association for Hydrogen and Fuel Cells, but now we prefer France Hydrogène. It is more expressed more what we want to do to develop hydrogen in France. More than 200 members, big groups, 40, around 40. Small and medium enterprises, 100, and 50 communities. All the regions of France are members of our association. If you remember, on the 1st of June 2018, Minister Hulot presented a plan. It gave a huge impulse for hydrogen. It was good for promotion, but no money, no financial support, no financial visibility. Nevertheless, there was some objectives. One of them was put later on in the Law Energy and Climate, which was published in November 2019. In July this year, on the 21st, we as an association, we published our manifesto. And look, you ask for figures. So some figures, what could represent in France if we apply the Law Energy and Climate from November 2019. So it should represent roughly 300,000 vans and taxis, 5,000 trucks and buses, 250 trains, 1,000 boats, small boats. It's not a huge boat for containers. In total, 680,000 tons of low carbon or renewable hydrogen. And for that, we need to develop electrolyzers, 7 gigawatt, and also to develop units for carbon capture and utilization, or carbon capture and storage. This requires roughly 24 billion euro from the investors, industrial or communities. But as technologies are still expensive, we want to have at that time in July, we expressed that we want to have some support from the state in the range of 7 billion, 6.75 billion euro for investment, and also 3.6 billion for producing low carbon hydrogen. these figures over the period over the next decades. And this could allow us to save 21 million tons of CO2 over the same period. This was the situation end of July, and then on the 8th of September, two ministers presented the French hydrogen strategy. So this time it's not only the Minister for Ecology, but also the Minister for Economy. It is considered as a part of the recovery plan after the COVID or during the COVID. And it is also in line with the objectives of President Macron to develop a French industry on a new basis. I mean, based on new technologies, IT, of course, but also hydrogen. So as you see it on the slide, three pillars in this strategy. First, there is no order between the pillars, of course. But first, to decarbonize industry and to create a strong industry for electrolysis. In other words, to create a French or European champions for high electrolysis, to build gigafactories to produce electrolyzers and install these electrolyzers to produce massive quantities of low carbon hydrogen for industry. I mean, steel industry, chemical industry, fertilizers, cement industry. Second pillar is to develop professional mobility. Professional mobility means heavy-duty mobility, such as buses, coaches, trucks, garbage trucks for municipality, and so on. But also vehicles for transportation of goods, what we call the last mile mobility. It implies developing vehicles, components for vehicles, but also infrastructure for refueling. The third pillar is to maintain efforts for research, development, and innovation. In total, the French government allocate 7.2 billion to the strategy with a clear will to go fast because it's a part of the recovery plan. So it means 2 billion euro should be maybe not expended, but engaged within the next 2 years, and 3.4 billion before the end of 2023. This hydrogen strategy is fully in line with our vision. I mean, to decarbonize industry, to develop heavy-duty mobility and intensive mobility as a complement of the mobility with battery, and also to develop innovation. The support from the French government is adopt multiple manners. The aim is to bring this support along the complete value chain of hydrogen. So first, to produce these electrolyzers, to develop gigafactories of electrolyzers, but also to foster the demand of hydrogen. So for the decarbonization of industrial sites, to produce equipment for cars, for H2 mobility, for hydrogen vehicles, and also, of course, to develop infrastructure for transporting, storing, and distributing hydrogen. So it will be done through a call for project, which this calls for project will be managed by the French Agency for Ecology, means ADEME, and also through a very important tool, what we call IPCEI, Important Project for Common European Interest. This approach was used for batteries, and we want that this means France wants to this be done also for hydrogen. We are very confident because if you look at the press release which was published last week by the presidency of France after the meeting between France and Germany, there is a common will of France and Germany to have this IPCEI before end of this year. And of course, it will not be limited to France and Germany, but expanded to many other European countries like Spain, Portugal, Italy, Netherlands, Belgium, and so on. Be part of an IPCEI does not give any money, but it allows member states to better support their national industries. And on top, there are also, as mentioned in this slide, specific mechanism to fill the gap between the cost of low carbon hydrogen and the cost of gray hydrogen. Low carbon hydrogen is basically electricity and also capex for electrolyzers. So far, the cost is, in the best case, in the range of 4 to 5 euro per kilo, compared to the cost of gray hydrogen, which in the range of 1.5 euro per kilo. So if you want to develop hydrogen for industry, people from the industry will not accept a high cost for low carbon hydrogen, so you have to fill the gap between the two costs. And there is, according to the RED II, the Renewable Energy Directive number 2, because it was revised, there is also in France a specific mechanism which will apply from 2023 for refineries in order to foster the use of low carbon hydrogen within refineries. For the future, and it will be my last slide, we see 3 main key challenges. First, we have a strong need to reduce cost and to increase the competitiveness of low carbon or renewable hydrogen compared to other energies. And for that, there is a strong necessity to scale up to achieve mass production. So I already mentioned gigafactories for electrolyzers, and I mentioned also that we need by 2030 7 gigawatt of electrolyzers in France. At the European level, there is this initiative of 2 times 40 gigawatt electrolyzer. So we have also to reach the scale of millions of tons of hydrogen. Second key challenge, which is very important as well, is we all consider that, of course, we have to go towards renewable hydrogen. But for that, we need renewable energy. And but what if the development of this green electricity is not fast enough? We have also to consider alternatives like carbon capture and storage. In France and in some other European countries use nuclear power, nuclear electricity. And also, as Germany announced it, to import green hydrogen from countries where renewable energy is abundant, North Africa, for instance. And the last challenge is very important for the French government. I already said that it was launched within the recovery plan, within the objective of President Macron to reindustrialize France, to develop more industry in France. So there will be, as a criterion for financing this project, there will be a strong attention will be put on the French content and how many jobs are created in France in order to get financial support from the French government. You will have to demonstrate that you create activity, value added jobs on the French territory. That's it from my side. I wanted to give in some words what is planned in France for developing hydrogen within the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. Very happy that we are here in Europe, actually, and that we, I would say, almost this luxury to take advantage from all these financial support programs. With the company which I represent, Life, we are also active in Europe as a producer of green hydrogen, and really looking forward also to work together on these different programs in different countries. But it would be very interesting to know how is this managed, for instance, outside Europe, and maybe to take a look to India, if you have there also this kind of luxury in supporting, getting support from the authorities for your projects. So, and I would like to ask Tira Biswas from the Council on Energy, Environment and Water in India to give his short view on this. So, Philip, I think you should stop sharing your screen.
Sorry.
Yeah. And that we give then the stage to Tira to give his view on this in India.
Thank you, Luke. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good. So let's keep it short because we have 45 minutes to go. And I think we still have half of the speakers here to give a short view on them. So please, to all the speakers, my really appeal, keep it short to 5 minutes. We cannot take more.
Perfect. I'll try my best. Thank you. Good afternoon. And I'm Tito. I work with Council on Energy, Environment and Water. We are a not-for-profit policy research think tank based in Delhi, India. We have been, our work on particularly hydrogen has been, over now 2 years where we're just focusing on the policy aspects of it. We have also been closely working with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. As Luke briefly touched upon, MNRE, or the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, has been the nodal ministry for promoting fuels like hydrogen, or green hydrogen to be more precise. India actually had a hydrogen roadmap in 2006. While it was not green then, and the end-use sectors were different, but right now there has been a push to relook the entire hydrogen mission and kind of try to evaluate what are the other prospects of further greening it. As you can see, the CEW, we have 7 focus areas, and we also have a Center for Energy Finance. I work with the industrial team and primarily work on hydrogen and greenhouse gas emissions from industrial sector. Today I'll be presenting some very key points on our upcoming report, which we just looked at the production cost trends of hydrogen in India and what are the policy implications for reducing cost and achieving scale. To start with, what you can see over here is a very basic large-scale production process, which we have modeled. We have used a linear optimization program to identify the system with the least investment costs. The electrolyzer is coupled with both solar and wind over here. And we also have a storage to ensure that a constant demand of 2.5 tons per hour of hydrogen is met at all times. We also looked at 2 different scenarios. One is a islanded scenario system where the additional or the excess electricity from the renewable is actually curtailed and the cost is borne by the hydrogen production cost, hydrogen consumers. The other part is basically a grid integrated system, although it's one directional, where we are assuming that the excess electricity can be off-taken by the grid, and there's additional revenue component to that. Interestingly, for India, right, if you we have tried to identify the future demand centers, and just for a rule of thumb, we have taken the metropolitan cities, we have taken the major industrial clusters like iron, steel, fertilizer, refinery, petrochemicals. Interestingly, what we also see is majority of the demand clusters today have only access to solar profiles, solar resources. And so we have also chosen locations, which we are calling as favorable ones because they have both solar and wind together. And those are mostly in the western and southwestern parts of India. So with this background in mind, I'll quickly run through some of the key takeaways. And this slide over here, it sort of highlights the impact of the various system design parameters on the levelized cost of hydrogen. The graph on the top left indicates that for an islanded system, how does the levelized cost of hydrogen vary with increasing renewable to electrolyzer install size? The graph on the right is the same trend for an islanded system. There are three key takeaways. The first takeaway, which what we see is, if we use a blended profile, a solar and a wind combined renewable resource, it gives the lowest production cost. Primarily because a blended profile has a lower intermittency. That means you're having a stable capacity factor throughout the year, which also means that the electrolyzer can have a better full load hours and hence reducing the costs. The second part, what we also see is, as you keep on increasing your renewable system size, right, there comes a point where your cost decreases, but beyond that point, there's not further impact. And the point is basically where your electrolyzer achieves the maximum plant load factor. For a green islanded system, what happens if you keep on increasing beyond that inflection point, your cost increases because you're curtailing more, which is indicated by the graph as a U shape over there. Whereas for an islanded system, what happens is the excess electricity, since it's being off-taken at the LCOE prices, it does not impact your levelized cost of hydrogen. So basically, as you keep on increasing your RE by A ratio, your hydrogen cost sort of flattens out. The third point we see over here is, in the short to medium term, if you can sell that excess electricity to the grid, you are reducing your cost by 0.7 to $1 a kg, which is roughly 20% of the production cost for that particular location in Gujarat. However, if you see in the graph over here on the the graph on the right, a developer might choose to operate at a very high RE by A ratio, something like 9 and 10. But operating at the point, that means he has to sort of curtail 80% of his total generation. Now, the problem is not with the 80%. The problem is basically the 80% is available only for a certain hours of the day, right? And your grid needs to be flexible enough to absorb all those electricity. To give you an example, for that particular location in 2020, to produce 1 kg of hydrogen, you are generating a 17 kilowatt hour of excess electricity. So the grid needs to handle all of these just to ensure that the cost further reduces. We sort of tried to map all locations over here. There, I would say, two interesting takeaways. The orange bars are locations which have only access to solar resources, or also known as the demand centers, whereas the blue ones are basically your wind and solar locations. What we see in 2030 is most of the locations can become competitive with blue hydrogen plus CCUS, at a natural gas price of $11.5 per MMBTU. In 2040, all locations become competitive with blue hydrogen at a natural gas price of $6.3 per MMBTU. Now, there's a reason why I'm using two different natural gas prices. In India, natural gas, the price of natural gas is not a market-driven. They are tied systems. There are certain strategic industries like fertilizer, like urban transport, who gets natural gas at cheaper prices, whereas most of the industries today are paying somewhere close to $11.5 per MMBTU. While one may argue that the global prices are certainly, the Asian LNG prices are certainly lower, but if you look at India's contracts, they are still oil linked, and they are pretty much hovering around more than $10 per MMBTU. Now, one of the interesting observation over here is, if you look at the wind and solar locations, they have a particular cost advantage compared to your solar locations. What also it means that by 2030, they can easily break even with the cheapest blue hydrogen in the country. And 2040, they can become competitive with the gray hydrogen produced in India, right? However, there's one interesting observation. If you compare 2020 and 2040, the cost difference between the wind and solar locations reduced significantly. To give an example, in 2040, the average cost difference between the wind and solar locations and solar locations is just 0.36 or less than $0.50 per kg of hydrogen. Now, if you want to set up a interstate pipeline that connects the wind and solar locations to the demand centers having solar locations, you would need a fairly large scale pipeline that can deliver with a tariff less than $0.5 per kg. And to our understanding, when we sort of try to model that using USDOE systems delivery model, we see that you need a very big, a very huge pipeline and to cater to a demand. And it's almost a chicken and egg situation, right? A pipeline cannot be invested once you have a demand. And if you don't have cheap, low cost hydrogen, you just can't also create the demand. So that's where the policy actually accepts it. So finally, I want to close off with this slide and also a question to my fellow panelists. In one scenario we saw, using the most aggressive reductions in electrolyzer cost to $200 a kilowatt, hydrogen storage cost to less than $100 a kilowatt, 8% discount factor, we see that the cheapest India can produce hydrogen is $1.7 per kg. While it might be at that price of $1.7 per kg, you might actually break even with coal and lignite products, which is used mostly by your iron steel industries, and then to some extent furnace oil, which is used in industrial heating demand. But for hydrogen to truly displace the bulk of the Indian industry's energy need, it has to displace coal, right? And the equivalent price is 0.7 or 70 cents per kg. So the question is that even achievable? And what are the further policy nudges that we need to make to bridge the gap? So with that, I close my presentation and I can take further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Archita. I think it was very, very interesting, very nice to see numbers here and really prices, etc., and costs. I would love to discuss them further now, but I think we have half an hour still to go, and we have a hard stop in half an hour. So we will see at the end what time is left over to go a little bit more in detail in one of the topics which you raised. I would like to Francois Gilles from the European Investment Bank to give a couple of views. So we have talked before about the support from national authorities for the hydrogen economy. It would be good also to hear what the European Investment Bank could offer us in this regard. So Francois, if you can please maximum 5 minutes, like said, we have in 30 minutes, a very hard stop. So yeah, if you could elaborate on this, please.
Thank you, Leonard. Can you hear me? And I'm having technical issues, so I don't know if the Anand or the organizers can actually stream the slides that I was intending to present. But if not, I can just talk to them. I think I mean, first I'd like to say it's very interesting to hear the diverse group of panelists present perspective. I think definitely interesting to see the innovation and the technical points of views that are being brought to the table. I think at the European Investment Bank, basically, for those who might not know, we're the bank of the EU member states. We are governed by and owned by the EU member states. We do 90% of our business in the European Union, and that's basically about 65 billion euros being lent or extended as financing on a yearly basis. And we're a policy-driven institution with policies around, priorities around innovation, environment, infrastructure, and SMEs. We're also, for the past couple of years, we're also aspiring to be seen as the climate bank of the European Union. And we've set out with ambitious objectives to mobilize 1 trillion of funding in this decade toward climate action, to have 50% of our annual lending volumes aligned with climate action definitions, and also our activities already this year aligned with the Paris Agreement. So that's about who we are. I think Mr. Boucli liked your presentation a few minutes ago. I think you recapped nicely some of the challenges, and I think some of the other presenters as well. But we clearly recognize, I think some of the key message we want to pass is that, I mean, we recognize obviously the potential of hydrogen. I think it's probably clear to all of those on this call, and the potential of hydrogen in the energy transition. At the same time, as much as there is potential, we recognize the challenges, and probably the question of scale and the question of innovation are two critical challenges, and perhaps in particular the question of scale in the short term as a key vector to help go down in terms of costs and make hydrogen more competitive. So scale and innovation, we recognize it as key challenges. But I think our message is also that we have tools and we have solutions to address these challenges. Perhaps you could catch up with me on page 6. So I think we have tools that are well suited for small companies, small innovative companies, technology developers. So we have tools that basically about direct funding of these projects through venture debt, for example, or through funding of commercial demonstration projects through some of our impact finance mandates. If you move to slide 6, thank you very much for showing the slides. So then we have we have various financing solutions. Like I was saying, it could be growth finance for innovative companies through the form of venture debt. It could be impact finance, so financing through what we call the energy demo project facility, financing commercial demonstration projects for innovative energy production technologies. We also have, on the application side, we also have a facility that's geared to support alternative mobility infrastructure rollout. So these are, let's say, financing tools that are geared to support, the high risk profile of that you might expect in for hydrogen projects. That being said, and then much more broadly, of course, we have let's say we have our balance sheet, and we have the ability to support much larger, well beyond impact finance, let's say, much larger hydrogen infrastructure projects. But I think there we will probably need to see a phase of transition, and I think probably in the short term, it's more likely that our impact finance tools, which have a higher risk absorption capacity, that these are, let's say, are called to use. And then on the advisory side, I come from the advisory part of the bank. So advisory, that's we're one of the origination points into the bank, and we provide support, advice, sometimes consulting support to promoters, and we have various ways of doing that. And I think that's one of the ways that we see our potential contribution to the development of hydrogen is by helping these, consortiums and these large project ecosystems that are, well, complex by nature, and that have a bit of self-discovery. And I think we potentially have a role to play here to help these consortiums find their way to a market aligned to a potentially investable and bankable proposition. A word on what we call the MFF. I mean, that's a European jargon for multi-annual financial framework. This is this is the next period that will start from next year on for 7 years, and where hydrogen it's set out by the European Commission, and it is basically going to set the priorities and funding priorities and the budgets that also us as EIB through mandates from the European Commission that we will be able to roll out and use to support hydrogen. I think it's interesting to see that there's a European strategy that has come out this summer in support of hydrogen with ambitious investment and volume targets. There's a Clean Hydrogen Alliance where the industry is basically working together to develop a pipeline of projects. So there's various measures, and so the key message here is that we hope that we will continue to have the policy support and the budget resources to continue supporting hydrogen as we all think it deserves. So moving forward, I'll close perhaps with a quick view of what we do on the advisory side. I think our team, you can move to my last page on page 7. We are associated with the Hydrogen Council. We have a partnership agreement with them to sort of monitor key developments and source projects. We're working with the European Commission, which, as I mentioned, is a key mandator for us as a bank, and we are working with them to consult investors and inform the European Commission on a future investment agenda for hydrogen. And then we're also advising specific projects in various parts of Europe and in various parts of the hydrogen value chain, be it refueling stations or large-scale integrated projects or clean steel, mobility, and others. So I think we're trying to support in a variety of ways, and I think that perhaps the common thread for us as advisory is to try and build a pipeline of investment projects for the bank. So I mean, I realize this may be far for some of you, but I think the key message in the end is that we have an appetite and we have an interest to invest, of course, and to support projects as we realize some challenges still need to be addressed. But we're out there, and we have some tools, certain tools that can help bridge that transition between the challenges and let's say bankable and viable propositions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Francois. Very clear. I think towards the audience, when there are questions, feel free to ask them via the chat, and our panelists will be still able to answer them live here during this session on the chat. For those who will be joining later on in the YouTube session, I think our panelists are all somewhere in LinkedIn, and everybody could find a way how to reach out towards them with specific questions. We still have about 23 minutes to go, so please keep it very short, maximum 5 minutes. I would like to ask Navid Akhtar from Hybrid Energy to elaborate on what I understand that they were one of the very first with a fuel cell bus in Hungary. So Navid, please, the stage is yours. Keep it short, like I said, maximum 5 minutes. Then we give the chance to the others also to speak.
Thank you, Luc. Just about to share my slides. Give me a couple of seconds. Okay, can you see my slides now?
I think it's going to come. Yes, it's there. Yes.
All right. Okay, so I will just quickly set a. All right, so let me start with my presentation. I would be discussing today the very first fuel cell bus development project in Hungary. My name is Navid Akhtar, and I'm the founder and CEO of Hybrid Energy. And this project we are doing in collaboration with Goldie Mobility, who is the basically owner of this first fuel cell development project, and we are the key partner in this project. Moving on, the very first question is why Hungary? So as you might be aware that there are very I would say very big companies involved, especially from an automotive sector in Hungary, and they are very big names, as you can see on the left-hand side on my slides. So the presence of, for example, Audi from Germany, Mercedes-Benz, and Bosch, they're big names, and they have their local manufacturing plants in Hungary, and there are a few other names on the list. And the other very important reasons why we were looking is a market, especially for the fuel cell development in the eastern part of Europe, was we compared different countries, especially in our case we were looking the comparison of labor cost versus also the production cost in UK versus Germany versus France, and we took some data from Hungarian kind of manufacturers. We found the very first thing which was very interesting to us was the labor cost was roughly half of the cost what we would expect if we make this bus in UK, for example. And the second thing is what we found, the corporation tax for businesses, running businesses in Hungary is the least in elsewhere in Europe, which again favors this kind of any business if you want to do some production in Hungary. And the other reason, as you can see on my slides on the right hand side, Hungary has a very good interconnect with other part of the Europe. For example, it has a very good network with Poland, for example, Slovakia, Ukraine as well. The western part, for example, in Germany, in Serbia, and also Croatia. So it means you are in the central hub of the Europe, and you can easily connect to different parts via ships, via road, and via other networks. So we were very lucky in this case that we tried to open up a business negotiation in Hungarian market, and especially I would mention here the up to today, for example, to our knowledge, there is no any other fuel cell bus or truck or any kind of mobility project happening in Hungary, and we are the first in developing this kind of lead in Hungary. Okay, so the project itself, so the project name is GoldOin. So this names to the actual company name, which is Goldi. And this GoldOin project is basically run by, mainly financed and run by Goldi Mobility Kraftwerk, which is a Hungarian company. It is a family-owned business, and it is this company is a leading manufacturing company, and it's based in Rekev in Hungary, and it was established roughly 40 years ago. So it's like a very strong reputation in Hungary, and they are mainly the manufacturer of various key components for electric, for diesel drivetrains, and now they are looking to move forward from fossil fuel basis mobility business to a clean energy, mainly to electric and pure electric and fuel cell electric business. Due to, as I mentioned, due to recent worldwide interest in clean mobility, they were looking basically to partner with other kind of, key players, especially to set up the supply chain, not only for the fuel cell, but also for the hydrogen production and hydrogen refueling business. And as I mentioned, this project is completely the phase one for this, which I would, mention in my next slide, is fully funded by this company. In terms of the business plans, so our business plans for the fuel cell buses, we plan to split this project into 3 key phases. The first phase, which is already in development, is the first 18-meter prototype fuel cell bus, which we are developing as we speak in Hungary. The second phase is a rollout phase, which means what we will be doing once the first phase is done, we will be trying to market this bus to other parts of the Europe, for example, and also locally in Hungary, and get some attention and possibly some orders, and to roll out multiple number of buses. And this would include the assembly of both 12-meter and 18-meter buses in Hungary for rollout to various parts of the EU. The third part is further extension of phase 2, and then moving on to phase 3. And in phase 3, we are planning to develop a local drivetrain assembly, which doesn't only include the bus basically, but it goes further deeper into the fuel cell drivetrain, which means you are looking to locally assemble all the parts. And also the main key thing here is we are also looking to locally assemble the fuel cell modules in terms of stack, and then the balance of plants all together. So it's like a complete, fuel cell stack assembly as well, other than the drivetrain assembly. As you you would imagine once you are running this kind of project, the funding is one of the key challenges which anyone can face, especially if you are moving forward from first prototype, which is phase 1, to phase 2 and phase 3. So what we did earlier this year, I believe in February, we held a meeting with local Hungarian investment promotion agency, which is called HIPAA. And we, together with our partner, which is our fuel cell stack partner, Horizon from Singapore, their CEO attended that meeting. Myself was there, and the CEO from Goldie Mobility, and some local government kind of people were there. And we initiated discussions regarding phase 2 and also phase 3, and we were asked to submit a proposal. We have just recently submitted, and we are looking for the outcome of that. And the plan is to get some kind of part funding for phase 2 and possibly phase 3. Okay, so a very brief summary here. So we believe Hungary is an ideal location, as I've mentioned before. Basically, there are key advantages in terms of the favorable automotive market due to the strong presence of key players. The second biggest advantage for us is the labor cost versus also the low corporation tax. Gold Line project, as we speak, is moving forward, and we are in the development stage of the first 18-meter FCEB bus. We are in very high-level discussions with the government representatives for the phase 2 planning. We are also talking to supply chain partners for batteries, supplies, hydrogen tanks. Also, very recently, today, I was talking to some suppliers for refueling business for our buses. We are also setting up in parallel some UAV, which is a unmanned aerial vehicles, and drones, for example, in Hungary. And these discussions are also in stage of discussion. At hand, I would say thank you very much for your kind attention. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Navid. Very, very good. Thank you. So I would like to speed on and move ahead. So like I said, if there are questions from the audience, feel free to use the chat. Later on, when you view these on LinkedIn, feel free to reach out to the speakers via LinkedIn or any of those other channels. I would like to move on now with David Hart from E4Tech, who has his view that hydrogen as a systematic enabler for the renewable world. So David, please, the stage is yours. Navid, please stop sharing your screen that we can give the screen to David.
Thank you very much. Luc, can you now see my screen?
No, I still see now we have it there. You see your screen.
Perfect. Good. Thank you very much. And thank you to the organizers for the invitation. Some very interesting presentations so far. I'm going to go very quickly as requested. I'm aware there are other people. What I had intended to talk about was systemic aspects. I'm going to talk very briefly about E4Tech, and I'm going to touch on a couple of things that have come up already because I think they're important. So E4Tech is a consulting company. We specialize in the energy transition and sustainable energy. We're about 30 people, and we don't only work in hydrogen and fuel cells, but I have worked in hydrogen and fuel cells for the last 25 years. So I've seen a lot of promises, a lot of things come and go, and I'm very positive about the current situation. And I'm positive for a couple of reasons. One is that we're doing a lot of work which is very specifically about businesses making big investments and about governments making big investments. So the questions that have come up about the availability of money, both from support and from within essentially large organizations, but there is money available. There are hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, euros, Swiss francs, whatever it is, provided there is the right forward-looking projection. The other thing, we do several other things. We do an industry review, which is free to download. It's on your screen now. So we've been tracking the industry, and the numbers are going up. So the numbers are drifting very positively upwards, and the supply chain is solidifying. So a couple of people have mentioned supply chain and costs coming down, and we see that very strongly. We see companies investing in production equipment and production facilities. And I think that we will actually hit those electrolyzer target numbers that have already been talked about even within the next 2 to 3 years. We're seeing gigafactories starting to be built. So I completely agree that there is a difference between the price of the unit that comes out of the factory and the price of the unit fully installed. But some of those questions are locally specific. But we have done a lot of deep cost analysis and deep due diligence, and we think costs of even sub 500 euros per kilowatt are very, very credible. The other thing I just want to touch on is in the due diligence we do, we see a lot of new technologies with a lot of very impressive claims about energy efficiency and energy use. And clearly, the more ambitious the claims, the harder we look at them. And I have to say, from my perspective, once you start going with an electrolyzer technology, for example, much below, say, 42 kilowatt hours per kilogram of hydrogen, assuming that's electrical input only, there's obviously the opportunity for heat, then we really have to interrogate those numbers to be certain. And I've seen a lot of things come through that didn't pass the test. And I think we all need to be cautious about not over-promising what might come. Because what I want to talk about in the next couple of minutes is two things. Hydrogen gives this opportunity to incorporate renewables further into the energy system. We've seen this diagram slightly redrawn already this morning, but it's really important. It enables this decarbonization of the molecular side of the energy industry with the electronic side. So we take renewable electrons, turn them into renewable molecules. Having said that, we've talked a lot about cost, and what we're really looking at here is a system. It's a system cost, it's a system benefit. And so just the cost of hydrogen production is not what we need to look at. What we need to understand is what are the avoided costs, for example, of alternative storage mechanisms? What are the avoided costs of pollution, of people dying from air quality defects? What about carbon emissions? That's really what we're driving at. So we do need to be competitive, but we need to be competitive on a system basis, which means producing hydrogen for a reasonable cost and then using it in an intelligent way to displace something which otherwise is less efficient or more polluting or otherwise does not give us a benefit. And that's really important, because what that does is it will also cause disruption. And we see this already. We've talked about India, there's the opportunity there, but in Southern Africa, in Southern America, we see the opportunity for new suppliers of energy. And this will displace the fossil fuel industry. If you look at what Shell is doing, what BP is doing, what others are doing, they're very, very concerned about how they will continue to exist in a low carbon world. So when it comes to the end of 2030, I suspect, and we're looking forward for a new decade, it's not going to be just about competing on cost with existing fossil fuels. It's also going to be making sure that we have convinced the investors, the institutional investors into these large companies, that these companies are climate resilient, that they have a plan going forward which is low carbon and very likely includes hydrogen. I'm sorry there were no numbers in there, except a couple I mentioned at the beginning. I'm going to stop. I wanted to seed some thoughts in people's minds. Very happy to take those offline subsequent to the conversation. But thank you all, and thank you, Luke.
Thank you very much, David. Very good. Thank you. So I would like to move very quick to the next one from Sky Energies. We've got here the CEO in our panel, Greg Ork, who will give us some insights, also in view of hydrogen production, grid connected versus off-grid connected, and what is required to accelerate it. So Greg, please, the screen is yours.
Great. Thank you, Luke. What I wanted to talk about, I guess, was more where we are today in Australia. Guessing that will probably play out into a lot of countries as well. So looking at what drives the circular growth from this point, taking into account sort of the things that have gone before, I guess. Just quickly, Sky Energies, has some European partners who make electrolyzers and standalone power systems. And we take ideally green renewable power and use that to provide energy across the mobility space, across the remote rural communities and mining and agricultural spaces. What I looked at though is really, what's driving demand, but more importantly, growth and pricing. And I think there's been a lot of great comments today about, growth coming really from looking at, where we can displace fossil fuels today. If you take the opportunity where there's diesel being used today to power mobility or to run remote communities, mining communities, if we can displace that, we can obviously get growth today. Because someone has mentioned today already, pricing is critical, and until we can really meet the price of the fuels we're trying to displace, we will struggle to get true hydrogen growth. We all, I think, know how hydrogen is manufactured. Some of the big things that really impact the cost of that is looking at the cost of the inputs, being the power and the water that's being used to produce that. But also one of the things that I'm finding is really critical is the amortization and the use of the electrolyzer itself. They are very expensive today, and being able to utilize that for as long as possible in any given day is really critical to driving those prices down. Jean-Louis talked earlier about the doing it on a very local, decentralized manner, and that's also critical because the cost of transport can be quite high, and it all adds to that cost, which then impacts pricing and makes it an unideal solution. I guess to try and help that, we look at on-grid or off-grid generation, and the problem with doing it on the grid is you've got the congestion issues of many grids and their ability to cope with that large amount of power required to power and run electrolyzers. So we do need high uptime, and that can come from some combination of hybrid technologies spoken earlier, sun and wind. But also, I think, waste to energy biodigesters will become critical to make sure there is a high uptime and our costs are managed to a very low level, which allows the technology to become a lot more competitive. Where does that leave us today? I think it's really a chicken and egg, and it's been once again mentioned today about the importance of having the offtake. I have a refueling station customer here who would tomorrow put up 5 more stations if he had the demand for the fuel that he was producing and putting out the back of that. So having those vehicles and having that uptime and an offtake would be really critical to getting it all done. So to me, I see it really as a circular loop. If we can get the pricing correct through getting the cost down by maximizing how we use the grid and off the grid, our supply dynamics would change and it will feed back to a more competitive pricing. So I'll leave it at that and thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you. Very nice to hear what's going on in Australia. I would like to move on with next speaker from A-Cargo. We have here Massimiliano Servo, who will speak a little bit about the move from the fossil to the hydrogen economy. So Massimiliano, please, the screen is yours. And keep it short, please, not more than 5 minutes. And I think you are still on mute. We do not hear you. You are on mute. Yes, now you're there.
See my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, so I have prepared something to talk about hydrogen trends and strategies, but well, I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can. So basically, we can see a shift of investments since I use the S&P as a reference to see what's going on in the market. So we can clearly see that that energy, which was once a great sector to invest in, today it's only account for 2.8% of the total weight of investments in the S&P index. So the shift basically went into technology. When we talk about technology, we can spot a couple of trends. These are just some examples. I chose a leading company from the oil and gas industry, a leading company from the renewable side, and a leading company in the hydrogen business. So this is actually an analysis to see what's going on in the trends. So we can see that the oil and gas industry is basically declining while the renewables are stagnated at the moment. And we can spot a exponential growth in the hydrogen investment side. So what happened with COVID? COVID actually generated a couple of drops. The oil and gas industry fell around 50% on the revenues, 40% in renewables and 48% in hydrogen. But the most important thing is, since April, when we were projecting the recovery and what's going on post-COVID scenario, well, oil and gas managed to increase by a factor of 58.27%, so they covered up their losses. Renewables by 73%, whereas hydrogen businesses actually increased a 340%, even in some cases around 500%. So this actually talks about a shift of investments. So talking about shift of investments, where is this money going? What are people actually investing in? So we already know that the global hydrogen production is around 70 million tons a year. So talking about this, I did a scenario to see what would happen if we wanted to decarbonize through green energy and electrolysis all of this amount of hydrogen. So we would require 620 million cubic meters of water a year. This can sound like a lot, but basically it's 1.5% of the actual water consumption that the oil and gas industry uses. So it's not that much compared to other sectors. We would actually need 3,600 terawatt energy. So this is actually around 51% of the installed capacity of renewables. So we would need to at least double or triple the amount of renewables installed in order to, let's say, keep a balance on the energy grids. But also we should think on the revenue side from oxygen sales. So if we produce 70 million tons of hydrogen, we would be producing also 560 million tons of oxygen a year. And that's around $300 billion industry a year. So that's something that should be considered in levelized costs as well as a sub-product and a possible revenue. So talking about revenues and achieving a hydrogen economy, this is actually where we are trying to go at the moment. What we need to think is hydrogen was once green for around, let's say, on 1920s, 1930s, there were a couple of green electrolysis plants from hydro. So they were using it for fertilizer production. So we need to think about what happened in between that made what was once viable unviable. So it has to be basically a scale and the cost and the cheap cost of fossil fuels. So how can we begin to decarbonize hydrogen instead of trying to sell hydrogen to whatever use we can think of? Just think about which could be the economically viable sectors to decarbonize in the short term. So this is basically my analysis. My strategy would be considering a immediate off-taker. This is actually, sorry for my misspelling here, this should be with an N, but don't care about this. Basically considering in accelerating the pace of the hydrogen economy. How do we manage to do that? Well, we already talked about decarbonizing the existing demand, and doing this in the short term, it's going to be very hard. So we should think about which energy mixes actually can give us the best load factor to achieve a lower levelized cost of hydrogen. So I was doing some kind of analysis for the industrial sector. The industry sector, without thinking on refineries, because that's a hard level and a hard sector to reach with hydrogen at the moment, we would need around 37 million tons a year of hydrogen. So what are we going to use to decarbonize that sector, which actually would need around $74 billion a year of investment? And this can sound as a lot of money, but it's only a 5% to 7% of the global investments in oil and gas, and it's around the 7% of the technology investment in the S&P index. So it's a lot of money, yeah, but it's achievable. I mean, we're investing that much money in more pollutant solutions, so we should think about investing in what I call clean energy products. So these are the sectors that I believe that can be decarbonized with on-site and short-term opportunities. Basically would be aiming to the pharmaceutical industries, food industry, steel, fertilizer, and chemical industry. This can be done, in a 30-year pace. It doesn't have to be done today, but if we wanted to do this in the next 15 years, we're talking about $0.2 billion investments in the pharmaceutical industry, $0.1 billion in the food industry, and $17 billion in the steel industries. These three only account for 3% of the investments, the yearly investments in oil and gas exploration investments. Now $9 billion in fertilizers and $0.4 billion in the chemical industry. This would actually mean installing in the next 30 years around 100 gigawatt capacity of electrolyzers. So I think that we can decarbonize actually food industry with my calculations with around 150 megawatts installed, the pharmaceutical industries with 250 megawatts installed. And well, for the steel industry, we're going to need around 115 or 150 gigawatts. So, well, what I'm trying to, let's say, promote is basically achieving new markets and trying to make a sector coupling where the energy sector can diversify through key partnerships and decentralized hydrogen productions. So this is basically, sorry for my accelerated pace, but I only have 5 minutes. But well, this is actually my vision. I think that hydrogen may not be the end solution, but it's actually one of the best energy vectors that we have today, and clean energy vectors, basically. So thank you for your time, and I'm open for further discussion through LinkedIn, through webinars. I'm giving some webinars on investments and hydrogen business models in November, so you can just contact me to keep the discussion going. But what I want you to take of this is basically hydrogen should be implemented decentralized in the short term and for, let's say, on-site industrial production. And that's basically my vision. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Massimiliano. Thank you very much. 5 minutes well spent. We move on with the next speaker. Please, maximum 5 minutes. We're running out of time. I would like to ask to the screen and the stage Petri Lokso from Solitaire Power. They have some very nice innovation. Also, we talked before about another presentation about the CO2, but they will have about the CO2 in building. I think it's a very nice solution, although maybe some depth about you can talk about this also. How is this going to move with people working more and more from home and probably less in office, but maybe that's another challenge. Please, Petri, go ahead.
Thank you, Luke. I hope everybody sees the slides.
Yeah, we see it. Yes.
Yeah, I have a really bold statement in the beginning. So making carbon capture and Power-to-X profitable. I'll explain it a little bit later, but what's the challenge that is not addressed today is the CO2 capturing is needed. And why would we need that is that the outdoor CO2 level is rising constantly. And because of the climate change and because of human action, because we are releasing CO2 into the atmosphere. And our genes have been developed in the 200-300 ppm region. And now since the CO2 level is going up, and indoors it's going even more up, we have problems with the our cognitive function. And it's scientifically proven that the indoor CO2 is proven to reduce the cognitive function of people by 20% by every 400 ppm increase. This is verified by NASA and Harvard and other institutes. So even if hydrogen is really something what we need, we would also need to have carbon capture and a lot of renewable energies to support the need of energy. And another part of our company is that we can make fuels out of the captured CO2 together with hydrogen. And we see that the global liquid fuel demand in 2050 is still half of it what it is nowadays. And if we start from crude oil, so fossil fuels, fossil oil, there's a wide variety of products coming out of that process, and we just cannot stop using like gasoline for the cars, having electric cars, because we need to utilize it somewhere. And with Power-to-X, we can do quite specifically just some fuels. Fast forwarding, I think that, and we think that the electricity will be the main energy system, so that we can do hydrogen and all other things also. And solar and wind are now the cheapest ways of producing electricity. And as we can see, the trend is going lower and lower. Already 10 euros per megawatt hour solar is possible today, and wind is somewhere like 30, but they are fast coming down. And new business opportunities are in the CO2 capture and recirculation of that. And also we need a lot of different kinds of storage options and business. Our solution is a building ventilation connected CO2 capturing, so that people can be performing better indoors and more well-being also. And there's a lot of buildings in the world. Actually, the real estate is the biggest store of wealth of people. And we can sell this as a service for $1 to $2 per day per employee, and which is the same as coffee benefit cost for the employees, but we have a scientific proof to make people more well-being. And if all the buildings in the world would be employed with our technology, we could easily do all the hydrocarbons needed in the world. With one single unit, we can do 50 kilos of CO2 capture in 8 hours, and that can be turned into 17 kilos of methane. Going forward, what kind of benefits and how can we do this profitable is that when we charge this 1 to 2 euros per day per employee, then that makes it profitable, and then the fuel can be sold with a normal cost. And our fuel production cost is depends, of course, highly on the electricity price. If the electricity is 1 cent per kilowatt hour, then our fuel production cost is 25 cents a liter. But since the Power-to-X is capex intensive, so investment intensive, it means that the investment is the biggest, let's say, challenge in that. But in our case, the office occupiers are the ones benefiting most from this, and the benefit is thousands or even tens of thousands of euros per person per year. But everything must start from renewable energy, and there has been a lot of discussion that we need to have this much of hydrogen and this much of that. But the challenge starts, where do we make that energy that we really need? And that is something that we need a lot more solar and wind. And why not something else if it's possible to have it? Okay, that's 4.5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Petri. Very nice to hear how you can make from low performers in the office still can get money out of them. So thank you very much. I would like to thank also all the speakers. We had a very good chat discussion. I was seeing here also. We had a very vivid discussion about the efficiency to clarify on that. So thank you very much to all the speakers. I think it was a great session, and I hope very informative. We kept our promise to give information, entertainment, and some fun to the audience. Thank you very much. Back to Anand now. Anand or Gaurav?
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for an amazing session and very, very insightful presentations. And I think it was an amazing engagement. I also got lots of messages from a lot of big developers, EPCs and IPPs that they loved a large part of the entire panel. So, and we look forward to more such webinars on hydrogen, and we look forward to growing our community and this interaction and this exchange of ideas on hydrogen in future. So thank you very much from side of EQ. And once again, I'll request everyone to please repost from your social and business media accounts this webinar, because a lot of people during their working time could not see it, but a lot of people would love to see it. So that is one request I genuinely have to make to everyone. And definitely in the pandemic time, I request everyone to be very, very safe. We are hearing about a strong second wave across US and Europe, especially in Europe. So I really, really feel that everyone should be very, very safe in these times. So thank you very much from my side, and bye for now. Have a good time. Bye.
Thanks.
And thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.